Morning, it's Martin's Engine Services. Right, well, I've just posted part one on the C-Max of getting the bonnet open and the air conditioning pump failure. I went to post part two, and it would seem that some person, I'm not sure who did it, of course, was going through clearing out some unused video or used video files and deleted part two of the video. Now, once you've watched part one, you'll realise I wasn't really going to make a part two. And I was explaining there, I dropped the phone, or I hit the wrong button, ended the video early, and it all generally went wrong. Now, any of you who've watched my videos will know that the quality of production is always maintained at zero, and it's quite hard to maintain that level of incompetence. But hey ho, let's not change things and scare off all any viewers that I've got. No, seriously, it's all a little bit emotional, I think. Anyhow, back to the C-Max. I think at the end of that video I had the bonnet open and I was just explaining how the saga of the catch worked. So there is the carnage of what's left, with all the front dismantled completely, various parts out. As I did mention in part one, there was no real casualties. There's a section of plastic in here which cracked a little bit in the corner, and I did just slightly pull on this wire, but I think it's all right. I will check it anyhow, make sure, but as I say, if that's the only slight casualty, then that's a bonus. And in fact, all bar one of these pushing clips actually survived, so it's quite surprising. Anyhow, I'll give you a little view of the carnage of all the parts. There's a few of the parts from the front end, and there's a load of very nice rusty crispy bolts in there. Some of them were a bit troublesome to get out, especially these coarse threaded type ones with these used to be 10mm heads on. In fact, one of them in the bumper has actually turned the plastic bit as well, so I have to retrieve that. The actual part of the lock here that latches to the bonnet is in perfectly good order. Don't lose the bolts. You've just got that sort of like crisscross sort of style connector in the back there where the lock assembly goes in. This works fine. It's all in perfectly good order, so I'm going to put that back. So once you've actually detached, unbolted this from the locking rail and it pulls up, away you go. Not sure where that bit came from. That dropped out from behind the wheel arch liner, so I'll put it there and fix that later. The end of the actual lock cable itself is actually a piece broken off there. You can see where the plastic's a bit cleaner. That's the bit that engages into that lock itself. It's just a little tag come off. And obviously when I pulled the latch upwards, this was still attached, so it just pulled it off. And it all turns inside here perfectly. It's just something's happened in the barrel where the key's not engaging and it's just spinning. So what a marvellous design. Hey ho. So I've got a new one M on order. Of course, it does come with 2 new keys, so I'll end up with an extra key. But given the saga of changing all the keys to match and sorting the barrels out and all the rest of it, I think the best thing to do, I mean, she's 15 years old now. Best thing to do is just have a separate latch with a couple of keys and move on with that. Now, onto the air conditioning pump. That was very poorly. The pulley was still intact and was rattling around nicely on the engine. So I started the extraction. Let's put some of this into some of the order it was actually in. So what I was actually faced with on the vehicle was this section of of rattling around. This obviously is bolted to the pump. The rubber like dampers in here have caught fire and gone rigid. So that's all detached from here. Now this has been chattering around, and you can see the shine on it. That's actually metal transfer. Where it's been grinding against the actual rotating part of the pulley, or the freewheeling part. The bearing inside, amazing enough, is still there. But there's no cages around the ball bearings at all. And you can see them. That's quite interesting. The surface of this is cracked, badly cracked with the heat. It was getting that hot. It's actually shattered the hardened steel sort of surface that it runs against. It's just basically cooked it. Now, the clip that lives in here and retains it on the end of the pump looks like it was probably glowing at some point, yet it still came undone. And one thing that did surprise me greatly was upon removing this clip, this pulley just slid straight off the end of the pump without any problem at all. There's no marks in the bearing cage here at all. It's perfectly shiny. Oh, workshop door blowing shut. It's perfectly clean, and oh look, oh dear, the bearing's fallen apart. I'll put that back together later, that'll be alright. But you can see how toasted this is. The surface of this is actually completely melted. Yeah, the steel is actually melted. Yeah, it didn't heat weld itself to the pump. The minute the pump's aluminium, you expect something to have happened there. And in fact, you'd be surprised it never spun, because I mean, literally under the clip, and it just slid off. They shut the workshop door before it was flying off its hinges, and we have to do another repair job on it. As usual, this part of Norfolk, the wind blows, or the wind blows, and the wind blows, and that's about it. Now the other door's banging. It's one of them mornings. Bear with. Right, that's it. We're all right now. So yeah, that came off surprisingly well. And then I was greeted by the electromagnet part of it. And this was all the copper windings that actually fell out of it. And it came out in this massive great pile on the floor, like a great big sort of slinky spring. It was all over the place. And amazingly enough, the two wires were actually still connected. But you see the copper was absolutely, must have been red hot. This part is completely melted. Inside of this has been ground away by this part of the pulley, because presumably where the ball bearings had lost their cage, they've all gone over one side. So this is now swinging eccentric. So, I mean, this is driven all the time by the engine. And obviously it completely did this. I mean, the plugs melted out the back. But yet again, the clip came out no problem. And this just came off. So I'm more than surprised. So what I think we need to do here is stuff all that copper back in there, wind some round there, join the wires up, pop that back in there, bit of grease, got the retainers, pop them in, bit of a clean up, we'll put that back on there, with a bit of no nails, and she's good to go. I think we can safely say that this lot here is spectacularly failed. The only thing that seems to be any good out of this lot is the retaining bolt and the very important shim, because these actually are shimmed onto the spline to give you the correct air gap between this part and the face of this. So there's a correct air gap has to be set so that when the electromagnetic clutch pulls in, it clamps tightly. If there's not enough gap there, rub, and if there's too big a gap, it won't clamp properly. So these shims are quite important. Although in the case of this one, I don't think it's likely to be going back together. The pump itself, the nose of the pump, down there and have a look at that. The nose of the pump here is, just catch it in the light, the aluminium's absolutely fine and there's no galling or any damage to it at all. So I thought at one stage that I might be able to just stick a clutch and a pulley on there from another spare pump I've got and at least try it. However, I put this inner part of the pulley on, and if you can hear that horrible noise, that's the bearing in the nose here, which has obviously got very hot. And also, there is no feel of any movement inside the pump. There's nothing, doesn't feel like there's any pistons moving or anything. This isn't one of those, I mean, obviously this is a clutch type, so there should be some resistance in the pump. It's not one of those constant pumps that runs all the time and is electronically switched. From the earlier type. Now, there is pressure in the system. I did the rudimentary sticker gauge with the top-up can on there, and the system's right up. I mean, without the engine, obviously I can't run it, there's no AC, but the pressure's right up high, so there is still pressure in the system. So, yeah, more tea. So, it still is retaining it, but there is a distinct smell of burnt AC pag oil on here. Yeah, on top of the smell of burnt bearings, there is a distinct odour that it may have been leaking some fluid out the front, or just a little bit under heat. I mean, just behind the nose of the pump is, of course, a ball bearing, which would have been taking the tremendous heat which would have radiated through the pump. The belt itself had actually, when it almost had seized up, had actually snapped. And as I said in the early video, hadn't destroyed the wiring harness, hadn't caught that AC line there, it could have actually ripped the crankshaft sensor off. Unfortunately, it missed that. So, really remarkable what happened in there. Given the potential, it did actually just catch the other belt, which was quite lucky. If I just find the other belt just has a little tear here, which is just through the first rib. And when the AC belt came off, it must have momentarily got itself wrapped into this and it ejected it. So there are a couple of other marks on the surface you see there where this belt took a bit of trauma. There's some scratches there and whatnot. So they were probably lucky. I mean, it's pretty good condition belt. It's not that old, and so it's only one rib gone, and it is a 6 rib, so it would have held on all right. So that is exploded carnage. I'm not sure they're going to repair the AC on this, given the fact, say, it's 15 years old. It's done a lot of miles. There's no point in putting a pulley on that and trying it because I know it ain't going to work. I had hopes at first, but now I've looked at it, no. And they've also been exceptionally lucky with the engine. Bearing in mind it's done about probably nearly 3,000 miles without opening the bonnet. And I know this burns oil. And there we go. It is jacked up, so obviously it will run a little bit away from there, but the shape of these sumps doesn't usually do that very much. And I've got the notch to the back as per the standard Duratec dipstick inspection, oil level inspection. And no. So I think they've been very, very lucky. When it gets to that stage, there's normally about, not showing, there's probably 1.5-ish litres, maybe 2 litres still in there at maximum, and they have been driving it fortunately carefully, but obviously it's had a high-speed run up from Dover to Cambridge here and been here, so there are no other noises coming from the engine. The other rattling noise was actually all that pulley jangling around on the front under vibration. The engine sounds very, very sweet. If you pick the revs up to about 1500 and then give it a couple of good revs, it doesn't rattle from the bottom end, it doesn't smoke, there's no tappet noise. It actually runs lovely. Very, very quiet engine. So I think they've had a very, very lucky break there. It could have been a goodbye engine job. So I guess that's where we're probably going to leave things for now, because obviously, sorry, mystery spares plug around there. I mean, obviously I can put the bumper back and whatnot, and I've got the bonnet catch en route to fix that. Throw a belt and some oil in it, and we can just leave all that as it is. Don't need any of that for it to run at all. So that's fortunately it's an independent belt, so that can stay there. There's no leaking of any gas, so there's no environmental disaster there. The system's staying sealed, and that can just live there. And then if they did want to reinstate it another day, it's quite a straightforward job. Have it degassed, bolt a pump on, belt on, get it regassed. So it should be quite straightforward. So we'll leave that there. So apologies for the carnage of part 1, but part 2 will explain it all. So we should be back to some sort of normal service-ish. One last look at that little lot. It's quite. I'm more than surprised actually, to be honest with you, that this whole lot didn't, given that bearing like that, didn't try to eject that whole lot off the front of the engine and chew all this to death. And surprised it didn't just carnage everything. I mean, that is just, well, we can literally see that must have been glowing, because that steel looks like something you've actually had glowing in the furnace or something. So I think we can commit this lot to the only place it can go, Bit of scrap copper, a lot of scrap metal. Anyhow, hope you enjoyed part 2, explaining the carnage of part 1. It's a nice morning here, it's a little bit on the nippy side again. Say, autumn has arrived early. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks very much indeed for watching. It's always appreciated, and bye for now.